this series is definitely for you if you're a neurodiverse or hypersensitive individual. And also if you find it challenging to achieve a specific goal or goals in your business or maybe even in your personal life. Now, of course, this is for you specifically if you identify with any of the following scenarios. So perhaps you are oscillating between having a lot of clients on your plate or not having clients at all. Maybe you're stuck in a survival mode because of this situation, and or you're undercharging for your services due to the prevalent imposter syndrome. Maybe you're struggling with an overwhelming number of tasks and to do things and, miss deadlines due to the time blindness that we ADHDers so often experience. Maybe you feel like no matter and regardless of your accomplishments, no matter how much you accomplish and do and take off of your list, there's always so much more that you aren't doing, that you aren't executing on. Maybe you feel this overwhelming fear by the mountains of tasks and things to do, which actually leads to avoidance and leads you to, just ditch it all and not do any of it. And perhaps you're experiencing this on and off focus, right? Where you can be hyper focused for one and then not focused at all. And maybe you're experiencing this hampering motivation, which is coming and going. It's never really consistent nor stable. Now, you can also be frustrated by possessing this super knowledge and insight, but yet when it comes to actually executing on this enormous potential that you have and creating, a course, a project, executing up until the end, launching a book, whatever it is, it falls short. And of course, it's because of all of this, what I just explained, you're regularly feeling tired, low in energy, low in motivation, low in inspiration, etc., etc. And this is why I've created Empathetic Entrepreneur and why I've been guiding and leading and consulting and coaching people for the last 6 years. Because the main mission of my practice is really to help you to create a business that aligns with your spiritual and metaphysical beliefs, and a business that caters to the person behind the business, which is in this case you, and to help you to create and offer products and services that support your own personal growth and spiritual development. Now, the pathway to that is really nifty, so to speak. So I always say, there's a combination of personal activation with aligned action leads to success. But why I wanted to really create this workshop on how to make it happen, how to beat this executive dysfunction, how to stop procrastinating, is because of the personal and professional breakthroughs I've had in my life and practice and other people have had as a result of my own experience. So first and foremost, I want to say that ever since I got diagnosed with ADHD, that completely shifted my professional landscape and as well as the personal one, because I've stopped being the problem. I've started having problems, right? All of this rejection sensitivity, all of this executive dysfunction, which is a chronic procrastination, all of this inability to truly execute on my potential, even though, I have buckets of experience, a lot of expertise, have had numerous clients across the globe. Still, there was a part of me that didn't feel enough, regardless of the accolades, diplomas, and money invested into becoming who I am. Now, thus far, I've really managed to embrace my neurodiversity, wholeheartedly accept my high sensitivity as a person and as a working professional. And this has resulted in blooming and blossoming various aspects of my life, not only including the business. But since we're talking about the business, I can say that wholeheartedly embracing my neurospiciness, my ADHD, my hypersensitivity, my different way of functioning led me to now being able to serve and have my online practice while traveling across the globe and mostly kind of situating myself between Croatia, Spain, and Mexico. It allowed me to provide consultations in one of the most beautiful cities on the planet, and actually flown by to Paris to coach and to accept clients from all walks of life. It allowed me to be featured on prominent radio shows and to join a speakers bureau in the United States. It allowed me to attract proper connections and maintain the positivity and the peace, right? Irrespectively of my internal or external turmoil. So no matter what's happening on the outside, what's happening on the in has really been revolutionary, because once you find and manage to obtain this inner peace, everything else falls short. And of course, the most important part, understanding that neurosensitive people and neurodiverse people function differently, understanding my own neurodiversity, but also understanding the neurodiversity of my own clients, allowed me to help numerous high achievers from all walks of life across the globe to finally feel liberated and capable of greatness. And I really have consulted, coached, mentored, and guided coaches, lifestyle medicine practitioners, e-commerce business owners, writers, bloggers, content creators, and more. And so if I'm going to skip the about me section, because I guess that at this point you have heard about me and my teachings, so I'm just going to say that there is a huge why behind this workshop on executive dysfunction. And this why really emerged after coaching hundreds of high achievers. And actually, after noticing the pattern, okay, what's happening to me is also happening to my clients. And neurodiversity does play a humongous role in business. And, you know, hypersensitivity significantly impacts all aspects of life, business included. Now, when I started to recognize these patterns within myself, you know, my inability to honor deadlines, my time blindness, my rejection sensitivity, and when I was jumping on a sales call and got rejected for 3 times in a row, I would get so demotivated, and I would be like, oh my God, I'm never doing a sales call ever again in my life. Whereas neurotypicals don't really function like that. Of course, they're not going to be glad that the call didn't pull through. And, you know, especially when you're selling your own services and or your own products, although I do tend to believe that with services is a little bit difficult, more difficult than with products. But regardless, once when you're your own boss, your own business maker, so to speak, right? And when you're selling your own stuff, this rejection sensitivity really does come as a significant threat. And not only have I noticed that in my own life and business, but I've started noticing that across the pond and across the border, because there I was, like literally consulting and advising the best of the best who have struggled with imposter syndrome, who have invested sometimes thousands, oftentimes actually, thousands of euros, pounds, dollars into becoming who they are, decades into publishing their portfolio, and yet not feeling strong, not feeling confident, not feeling motivated, not feeling like they can do it, and not really executing on their potential. And this is why I decided to, first of all, start an empathetic entrepreneur brand and expand my reach and to help neurodiverse visionaries to really execute on their potential. But also, this is why I decided to host this workshop, which is going to be only one of many, in which I'm going to go into nitty-gritty details of executive dysfunctioning, rejection sensitivity, time blindness, and all the ways in which neurodiversity, especially ADHD, can hinder our success in business. Now, what can you expect to learn in these couple of well, it's going to be another 40 minutes or so. What can you learn and what can you expect to receive from this workshop? So first of all, I'm going to really try to explain the link between neurodiversity, hypersensitivity, and entrepreneurship, which is something that I don't think has been explored sufficiently. It's not something that's commonly talked about, and it should be, right? Then we're going to go over how your lifestyle impacts your business and career. And then we're going to outline some practical steps that you can use starting today to thrive as a neurodiverse entrepreneur or as a highly sensitive leader. So this is not only for people who are running their own businesses. This is also for those who are trying to climb up the corporate ladder, those who want to show themselves and prove themselves to their bosses and employees, right? So the neurodiversity and high sensitivity is the overall theme. If you're running your own business, so much better. But if you're not, you're still going to take immense value from what's going to be presented to you today. Now, let's kind of clear something out. whenever people come to me and they ask, kind of, but how do you define neurodiverse, neurospicy individuals? Who are those neurodiverse, neurospicy individuals? Well, neurodiverse or neurospicy individual is an individual who has a very unique brain functioning that's different from the typical cognitive patterns, right? Which means that these people are going to think differently, behave differently, process differently, be stimuli or not stimuli differently, and so on and so forth. In a nutshell, we're talking about people with ADHD, autism, Asperger's, dyslexia, or any kind of brain, most of the time, impairment, but definitely absolutely different brain chemistry. And now, before I go any further, I'm going to say this. If you're listening to this and thinking, but then I don't have dyslexia, I don't have ADHD, it's okay, you can still stick around, because this also applies to highly sensitive people, to people who are empathetic, to people who are profound, and to people who just feel deeper and more than the most. So if you're falling under this category, this is also going to be super beneficial for you. Now, what is the difference, and the key difference really, between the empathetic entrepreneurship and sensitive entrepreneurship and leadership and the traditional one? So once again, it all boils down to a person behind the business and not necessarily business itself. So the first kind of, I would say, differentiation factor is that we as ADHDers and neurospicy people are really deeply sensitive, and we're in our heads a lot, more than the most. Right? We get off on analyzing, rationalizing, syncopating, creative imagining, even, daydreaming, spacing out, which can be a cop-out from reality. But most of the time, we're profound thinkers, and we're deeply, deeply sensitive. Now, that impacts our entire life, our decision-making, and the way we approach our problems and our business as well. The other trademark of neurospicy people and highly sensitive people is that we're highly creative. We're visionaries. Most of the time, we're amazing when it comes to the bird's perspective, when it comes to the grandiose big picture, right? Ask any neurodivergent person, can you tell me what is your goal in 10 years? They're going to be able, most of the time, pinpoint it to the not. And the problem is, because we have such an ability to create such a big picture, we actually struggle with small steps, with repetitive tasks, with day-to-day boring stuff. And since we're exceptionally imaginative, and we can envision such complex solutions and diversify within different future scenarios, we actually struggle with being here, present today, in our body, and really taking the one step at a time. Also, emotional dysregulation is huge for us, especially for us ADHDers who are dopamine deficient, which means that our emotional responses and stimuli are very intense, very variable, and that affects our personal life and our professional life alike. We also are very, very lifestyle dependent when it comes to the proper functioning. And let me explain to you, what do I mean lifestyle dependent? And this is really for us who have ADHD and are dopamine deficient. So neurotypical ones, and neurotypical being the most of the population, the people whose brain chemistry is similar to the brain chemistry of the most of the people on this planet, right? They will have issues with certain things, but not aversions and not complete impossibility to proceed with them. Let me give you an example. With working in a cubicle, sitting 8 hours a day, and doing the same repetitive tasks day in and day out. If you're a neurodivergent person, this is going to be barely possible for you. And if you're going to be, I would say, if you're going to be forced to do this and have this kind of a lifestyle, you're going to go cuckoo after a while. You're not going to be healthy nor sane, not only because the human body hasn't been made to sit for a prolonged period of time, but it was made to move, but also because your entire nervous system won't like it. For neurodiverse people, especially for ADHDers, movement is healing. Movement is healing. If you go back and rewind to the past, we were those original hunters-gatherers. The more you move your body, the more you live in your body, the more you get into your body, the happier, healthier you're going to be. And to the same extent, to the same merit, The way that we eat and what we eat is going to impact our decision-making process significantly, our emotional stability significantly, our way to cope with challenges significantly. Like, for example, I don't know if you know this, but one of the main mood regulators is serotonin, which is not produced, it's a neurochemical which is not produced within the brain, but within the gut. 90% of serotonin is produced within the gut. And the serotonin is one of the main ones who is in charge of the mood stabilization, which means if your serotonin levels are off, you're not going to be able to stabilize your mood. Now, for people who are neurodiverse, we have problems with emotional volatility to begin with, right? So if we don't eat foods that's going to help us to have a healthy gut, strong, robust gut, we're not going to produce serotonin. If we do not produce enough of serotonin, we're going to be all over the place all the time, which is why proper nutrition is crucial for people with ADHD. Not to mention that, brain metabolism is also one thing that we need to bear in mind as we are dopamine deficient, and, the motivation chemical, which is dopamine, neurotransmitter basically, which should be present in copious amounts for us, is not present. Sometimes when it's present, it's not converted properly. So if we don't supplement properly, if we don't make sure that what we eat, how we eat, when we sleep, how we supplement is not aligned to our biochemical needs, we're not going to be able to function at all. So not that functionality and optimization is going to be decreased. Sometimes it's going to be non-existent, right? We're not going to be able to function at all. And then one other thing that really kind of is a trademark of us neurospicy, highly sensitive leaders and entrepreneurs is that oftentimes we are misunderstood because things that go mildly hard or not hard at all to others go extremely hard to us. And traditional methods for living, and especially for functioning in business, do not apply to us. Do not apply. So 5 a.m. club, forget about it. We're not early birds. Most of us actually have the circadian rhythm, which is more adjusted to the nighttime, which means that for us, rising around 8, 9, or even 10 a.m. is going to be our optimal. And if we force ourselves to function opposed to and if we try to oppose to our biology, it's not going to go good for us. So regardless of what society is telling you, if you're repeatedly trying to do something that you should not be doing because your setup, your original setup is different, well, I do imagine you understand that the results are not going to be favorable. Now, I would say, traditional methods for life and for business don't apply to us because it's the same thing as expecting from a fish to climb a tree and then judging the fish for being incapable. Well, yes, for climbing a tree, it is pretty much incapable because it's a fish. It has no business on the tree to begin with. Now, I'm going to kind of fast forward and just kind of move to the fact that throughout my consultations and guidance and mentorship, I have noticed several issues with highly sensitive entrepreneurs and with ADHD entrepreneurs. And I'm going to just kind of line them up. But in this workshop, unfortunately, we won't be able to address them all. We're going to be able to address the first one because let's face it, it's a lot of content to go through. And I don't want you to be sitting all this time. Hopefully, you're actually listening to this on replay and just kind of walking and syncopating and sponging the emotions as you're the information as you're doing that. But more of that later. Frequent issues that I've observed with all the people that I've coached and consulted thus far were, first and foremost, executive dysfunction, which is often seen as this chronic procrastination, starting and stopping, not starting at all. Then fluctuating focus abilities. Someone who's going from hyper-focusedness to not having focus at all. This is why, for example, you have people who are able to play video games for 10 hours straight, and then they're unable to focus on homework when they were like children, for example, for half an hour. Because our focus as neurospicy people is mostly interest, urgency, or novelty driven. So if something is not interesting to us, if it's not urgent or it's not new, it's probably not going to require, it's not going to invoke focus in us. Then we have heightened rejection sensitivity, which has been very notable for me and my clients throughout sales calls. As I mentioned priorly, you know how in business and in life, especially when you're working for yourself, offering your own services and or products, it comes a time when you're going to get rejected and rejected and rejected by prospects, not because your service is not good or product is not, top notch quality, but because maybe they don't need it, maybe they're not aware they need it, maybe they're afraid to invest. Whatever it is, rejection is a part of life and part of business. The problem is that for us, neurospicy, highly sensitive people, we take it so close to heart that we start questioning ourselves and our services and our products when this rejection happens perpetually. And something that is just regular part of the business to us is detrimental for our mental health, even, right? Then most of my clients are very emotion. They have this emotion-driven productivity, which means that they work when they feel emotionally compelled to work, right? Most of the time, it's on our call, maybe a little bit after. But when it comes to actually working and being disciplined day in and day out, unless they have decades of practice, they're not going to be doing it. Most of the people that I know are also underutilizing on their unique abilities, and most of the people aren't really even acquainted with this quadrant of unique abilities. Whereas, we as a human species, all of us are functioning in one of the four quadrants. The first one is unique abilities, which is something that we do without even thinking about it, and it's amazing for us. Like, we do it incredibly well. Then we have excellent activities, which is something that we do. We're not so good at that, but we love it nevertheless. Then we have competent activities, which is something that we do really good, but we really don't love it or even like it necessarily. And then we have unique disabilities, which is something we don't like doing. We're not good at it, but for some inexplicable reason, we keep on doing it. Unfortunately, most of the neurospicy people fall under the second categories, competent activities and unique disabilities, and they're underutilizing their unique and excellent activities and abilities. Then, most of the people who are neurodiverse are struggling with delegation, and they do have tendencies to micromanage because there is this urge and need for control, which gives emotional safety. And then, of course, there is a complete mismatch between lifestyle and business demands and neurodiversity. Now, once again, I want to emphasize that this is only a beginning. This is only something that just occurred and emerged in the last couple of years. But I do hope to see sensitive entrepreneurship as a grounding stone for all those who are different, for all those conscious creators, for all those empathetic entrepreneurs that know that they have a huge impact to make, that they have creations that will be shared and will change the facet of this reality. And this is why I want to really explain the 5 main differences between traditional entrepreneurship and leadership and sensitive entrepreneurship and leadership. And then I'm going to speed it up. I'm going to tell you how to beat executive dysfunction. But bear with me on this one. So the traditional model for any business owner or leader really prioritizes business strategies and discipline action. This is the business plan. These are the steps. These are the sales. These are the processes. Whereas the sensitive entrepreneurship approach really prioritizes the individual first. What do you need? How do you need to feel? What do you need emotions and energy-wise in order to be able to do this, to quantum leap, to jump to the next step, right? So this is the main difference. Traditional entrepreneurship prioritizes business. Sensitive entrepreneurship prioritizes a person, the person behind the business. Then, tailored and individualized approach in business execution. Let me give an example. Let's say that you are a coach or an educator, and you want to establish your brand, you want to grow your business. So all of the advice that's going to be given to you and all of the practical and executionable steps are going to be different if you, for example, have a strong disdain for a specific platform. Let's say, everybody's telling you should go on TikTok, but you don't feel like your TikTok is a platform for you. Everybody convinces you should invest in this program or that program, but technology savviness is something that you actually struggle with, and you'd be better off by paying someone or having someone on board as a volunteer or as an intern in your company to do that stuff for you. So what is really different with this sensitive entrepreneurship approach, it plays to your strengths and to your uniqueness, and it takes out everything else that doesn't do that. 3, the emphasis of the entire sensitive entrepreneurship is on your emotional and energetic needs, because here is the thing, when we unlock that part of you that doesn't feel enough, When we give you enough confidence, enough stamina, enough strength, enough power, when we help you to access this inner power, you become invincible and everything starts falling into place. And this is what it's all about. It's energy based strategy, right? Strategy is all about mind, rational way of thinking, 3D. Energy is all about the heart, the energy field, the 5D, the soul. And I always say the combination of energy and strategy is needed. But here, we're really putting a heavy emphasis on your emotional and energetic needs. One example of this is that some people are really just not made to be alone and to be working alone, which is when I like to recommend and also utilize body doubling. I mean, sometimes they're really way more productive when some other people are taking their laptops and working next to me. Just this proximity of another human being makes the world a difference. Now, not to mention the sensitive entrepreneurship is also spiritually enriching and completely transformative because you're going from having a job into creating a calling and pursuing your destiny. And of course, at the end of the day, this is still entrepreneurship. So there's still a lot of work to be done, a lot of actions to be taken. But everything that is done and all actions that are taken are in alignment with your higher self and with your regulated nervous system. Now, the first thing that we're going to tackle in this workshop, and this is going to be an exciting one, so brace yourself, is the executive dysfunction. So if you're asking me what is executive dysfunction, of course, you have the official terminology and definition, and it said that basically what executive dysfunction is. It refers to difficulties that we experience as neurospicy people in managing cognitive processes, which include, we have problems such as planning, problem solving, organization, task initiation, completion. But most of the time, it's really procrastination, right? Once again, starting and stopping with projects, not stopping at all, not starting at all, having multiple projects that you're juggling and then crushing all plates. And there are a lot of causes to the executive dysfunction, but the impact that it has and that I've seen and personally experienced, but also seen so many times with my clients are most of the time, people who have executive dysfunction are so full of self-blame, so packed with self-blame because they blame themselves for not being able to get started on certain things. They blame themselves for not being able to go and find a different job, go hunt for more clients, go and just do things because everybody around them seems to be okay with doing things that they don't like. Even the things they like, they cannot do. We cannot do. Right? So this feeling of stuckness and helplessness and self-blame is kind of a trademark of an executive dysfunction. Then this kind of permeates the entire being and the entire business. Not only that we feel stuck because we cannot execute on the things we like and dislike, we also have a lot of problems believing that what we're offering, selling, and doing is actually valuable. And to the lesser impact when we're working for someone else, but to the greater impact when we actually start working for ourselves, because we start doubting the very core foundation and value that our business is creating on a market. And that is a huge no-no. That is actually what makes us quit long term. Now, we tend to avoid tasks, responding to emails the last minute, creating presentation the last minute, phoning that investor or potential client and setting up a demo or a sales call last minute. We also tend to struggle with inconsistent performance, which means that, like, say, you have decided to content create your way to the top. So you're going to post for 2 weeks straight, then 1 week you're not going to post at all. Or you're going to be consistent with emails, and then those emails are just going to stop. So there's this inconsistent performance in addition to this complete decision paralysis, which means that, do I take this course or that course? Do I do the social media strategy for this platform or that platform? Do I brand myself as this or as that? So as you can see, the executive dysfunction is so much more than just a chronic procrastination. But in this short workshop, I'm going to be really focusing on the chronic procrastination part because this seems to be the biggest issue. Starting and stopping, not starting at all. Now, as I said, executive dysfunction can be, you have a book to write, you have a course to create, you have a business workshop to lead, but for a lot of you, you cannot Make yourself do it. Even when you know it's spectacular, even when you know you have all the knowledge, all of the strength, all the wisdom, you just cannot make yourself. And then you are going to then you're going to start catastrophizing, and you're going to start convincing yourself and telling yourself stories around why this is not going to work to begin with. So now, there are a couple of categories that I'm going to go through when it comes to the executive dysfunction. First, of course, is the brain impairment, and then nervous system dysregulation, and fear of success and fear of failure. Because what I've noticed with my clients, and I mean, this really applies to 90% of the people that I've worked with that have been underdiagnosed, because most of the people that I do business with aren't even aware that they're neurodivergent. But after kind of scanning their business and their life, it becomes quite apparent. And I was always fascinated with root causes, right? Because all of this that we were talking about right now, which was basically procrastination, poor time management skills, time blindness, and so on and so forth, all of this are symptoms. What is the root cause? What is the reason behind the reason? And a lot of people are going to go and say it's neurodivergency because I have ADHD. But what if I were to tell you that this is a symptom as well? And that there is actually something that's behind that. And that something that's behind executive dysfunction and chronic procrastination is, yes, to the lesser extent, brain impairment, but to the bigger extent, to the higher extent, nervous system dysregulation, fear of success, fear of failure. And let me explain what do I mean by that. So now we're going to put the ADHD aspect aside and neurospicy aspect aside, because I am of a belief that it can be managed extraordinarily and actually cured completely. And I would not like to go into it right now, but I would rather focus on the fear of success, the fear of failure, and the nervous system response. For us who are hypersensitive, the whole safety and stability is going to be different, because check this one out. Whenever you're growing your business, whenever even you're starting your business, you're progressing, you're going through stages, right? And maybe the first two steps are comfortable, the third step is not comfortable, the fourth step becomes frightening. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say that you've decided to open your coaching business, and at first you're very ecstatic, you are, feeling happy and light about everything that you're going to create and put out there, and the changes that you're going to see in the world as a result of what you're creating and making, and you're full of enthusiasm and you're being insanely productive. Now, once again, bear in mind that I'm talking about a person who's neurodivergent and hypersensitive. This is very different for people who are neurotypical and who are not hypersensitive. But let's say that you are a hypersensitive individual. Now, in the first few stages, everything's going to be fluffy and light and beautiful and inspiring. Then it's going to come the hard stage when you're going to be selling your services, and maybe this is not something that goes naturally to you. Maybe you don't have a lot of sales experience. Maybe you just feel standoffish about asking money for something that comes so easy to you, which is often the case with my clients. And this is where it's going to start feeling uncomfortable. Now, what's going to happen here radically differs from the traditional entrepreneurship. And I'm talking about your own auto-response of your own body, right? So let's say you have a business coach who's pressing you to sell, or you have decided, hey, I really want to make this work, so I'm going to put my heart and soul into it. But when you overstretch yourself, you're going to be exhausted. And when you leave the threshold of perceived safety, you're actually going to be frightened. And you're going to be, what now? What now? What now? And you're going to shut down, because most of the time you're going to go into the freeze mode. Leaving the comfort zone as a person and as an entrepreneur, unlike with neurotypical ones, won't make you feel stronger or better or more proud of yourself for doing it. Most of the time, it's going to make you feel scared. And when you get scared enough, you're going to enter the freeze state. And what is a freeze state? Freeze state is a trauma response in which we feel like we cannot run away from the aggressor, so we immobilize ourselves, we freeze. This is then further on going to result in you not being able to take any action with your business for days, sometimes even weeks or months. And I've been seeing this time and time and time again from tutors, lecturers, coaches, content creators. It's just that when they leave this comfort zone for a prolonged period of time, if they don't give themselves enough time and space to retract, to establish, to consolidate, they are left drained, and they actually go into the freeze mode, and they just stop with everything, right? So the burnout for a traditional entrepreneur results in, okay, I have to have a little rest, I'm going to take a little massage, a couple of days off, and this and that, I'm going to be back on the track. For a neurodiverse individual, it's going to result in a freeze mode, and everything, what they're going to be doing is going to be forcing themselves out to get out of the freeze mode. Because their nervous system literally said F, FO, right? So this is what makes the entire landscape different. Because if you know that if you push yourself too hard without going back into the safety and stability, without regulating your nervous system, without retracting, consolidating, replenishing, retracting, consolidating, replenishing, if you don't know that you need to do that, as I didn't know and many of my clients didn't know, you're going to be so mad. You're going to feel so incapable. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be wondering why, but why can I not do that? Why can someone hop on a sales call and sell a day in and day out? Why can someone cold message 200 people on a daily basis and I cannot? And you're going to be, because you're comparing, once again, you're comparing yourself with neurotypicals and people who are not as highly sensitive. So it's incomparable. It is absolutely incomparable. Freeze state as a trauma response is real. Hypersensitivity is real. And it's clearly depicted and shown in business and in life. And I'm not saying that you should not be leaving your comfort zone at all. This is not what I'm saying, right? So I just want to cut it here and say that and be very, very loud about it. You should, as an entrepreneur and as a person, be leaving the comfort zone. But this leaving the comfort zone is going to look different for you if you're a hypersensitive person. Now, when we are in a freeze state, I often tend to say that we're in a learning state because we have this nudge and this notion that we cannot do anything. We feel drained. Even when we sleep, we're not rested. We cannot motivate ourselves for the life of us. And this is because we feel threatened. We don't feel safe. We are not regulated. This can actually last for weeks, months, sometimes years. And the overcoming this state, understanding, okay, I'm in a freeze state. I've overexhausted myself. I have really messed up my own boundaries and I need to get back from it, right? So immobilizing by being immobilized by stress is a real thing. Being in a freeze state is a real thing. Being hypersensitive and going into the freeze state like this, because you're not honoring your hypersensitivity, is a real thing. So what can you do to get out of the freeze state? And here's where the plot thickens, because and you see how then the nervous system regulation and neurospiciness is paramount for optimal business function. You see this one? Now, to go back to the out of the freeze state, what you want to do is you want to ground yourself. And freeze is, once again, a trauma response, trauma that is stored in the body, in the visceral self, in the cells. And what you want to do is ground back to reality, be back present in your body, be here and be in the now. You want to start by focusing on the physical sensations. Drink water. Better yet, take a shower. If you have, and if you can, and do a magnesium bath. Try to swallow something, eat, go back into your body. There is a plethora of breath exercises that you can use. I am a big fan of a 3-4-5 exercise, whereas We breathe on 3, we hold on 4, and we let out with our mouth open on 5. And we do that in increments of 5 until our nervous system is starting to regulate. Also, I always recommend to go and activate one of your senses, such as the sense of smell, which is really what can be one of the most comforting senses. So, or you can take something that's comforting, like an essential oil of chamomile or lavender, or something that's more invigorating, such as citrus, right? So, but whatever it is, you want to go back into the present moment. You want to go back into your body. You want to be absolutely aware of what's happening and that this freeze state is actively occurring. Now, you also want to seek out emotional support, because when you're in a freeze state, what is happening is that you are in a defensive mode. What you want to have, what you want to feel, is that you are held, that you're safe, that you're grounded, right? So try by revisiting comforting memories that you have. Try by spending time with someone who makes you feel safe. I always say animals are ultimate unfreezers, because just, we also know that it boosts serotonin to cuddle with a pet. But just this physical proximity of another breathing and living being is going to do wonders for your nervous system. There are a lot of practical steps for grounding. And if you want to get them all, I would recommend you to follow me on TikTok or to subscribe to my newsletter, where I give them in abundance, completely free of charge. But what I do notice is a therapeutic writing exercise in which you're offloading all of the stagnation and stress and dark thoughts onto the piece of paper. And I do insist that you take an actual notebook and a piece of paper, because that on its own is a fantastic exercise, especially when you're in a freeze state. Because what you want to do, you can think of it that a freeze state that everything is frozen and clogged, and you want to open your nervous system and let the energy start flowing again. This is why, once again, time spent in the nature is essential, paramount, the most healing thing you can do. And of course, try to create a very safe and nurturing work environment. Make sure that your office feels comfortable, that it feels warm, that it feels inviting. I always have instances that smell like coffee, because this is my go-to comforting smell. And you really want to create your little sanctuary out of your office. Make it so that when you step into the place of work, you already feel accepted, you already feel loved, you already feel understood. Bit by bit, day by day, trigger response by trigger response, you're going to start relaxing, trusting, embracing, and then, and only then, you can then start taking mindful action, right? When you have overcome this free state, this frozen sensation. So how will you know that you left the free state? It's going to be like you're going to start feeling goosebumps, or that feeling when you miss a step, right? Or this transient feeling of falling just before you, fall asleep. This is how the nervous system regulation feels like. You're going to feel like a little twitch, and this is going to start your body's going to start to ease up. And this is how you know, oh, I'm back into the safety, I'm back into the regulation. Okay, now I can proceed with my day, my tasks, my chores. And of course, once you've been regulated, you can shift your focus to the productivity and to more creative tasks, because that's the whole point. Now, as I said, this was only a quick introduction into, how to build consistency, how to harness your unique abilities. And the foundation for the success is really getting out of the freeze state, but also dropping the self-blame and for procrastination and comparison. Because comparison in this case scenario for you as a neurospicy entrepreneur and leader is ridiculous. You cannot compare yourself to anyone. You are different. Your body chemistry is different. Your setup is different. Your identity and personality is different than the most. This really doesn't make any sense for you to try to compare yourself to anyone but yourself. And even when you do so, do that lovingly. Now, when it comes to leaving the creed state, listen, this has been such a thing for us for decades sometimes. And we're not going to create a new habit in a matter of a day or two. Actually, it takes us between 90 to 120 hours to make any behavior habitual. Leaving the freeze state and going back to the productivity included. So give yourself time, give yourself space, and give yourself risk. Customization is also the key. I'm going to go deeper into the topics of proper nutrition, proper supplementation, because from everything that you've seen already, I am free to deduce that you yourself have concluded that if your biochemistry isn't working for you, it's working against you. And as a neurosensitive leader, you definitely want to have your biochemistry working for you, and you definitely want to have optimized the lifestyle, which is going to allow you to function. Not function optimally, function properly. And of course, once you're regulated, once you've started practicing this grounding technique, once you've paid attention to the fact that you're different and that you need an extra nudge and push to go back into your body, to honor your sensitivity, then you can start thriving. Because you already have everything that you need. But it's only the thing that is left is a little bit more compassion and understanding that you're different. And now I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to start with the Q&A. So we have one person in the Google Meet, so I'm going to address this one individual. Whoever is on Facebook, I'm sorry for not responding on Facebook. All of your comments are going to be responded accordingly. But before we wrap this session up, and I would encourage our Alana to ask as many questions as possible, because I do presume that so many people across the globe are facing the same thing. And as the more questions I can respond from my personal experience, the better, and the more people I can advise, the more impact we can all make in this world. So without any further ado, please, Lana, I would love to encourage you to unmute yourself and ask away. Maybe you want to first start off by introducing yourself and telling us, what do you do, what encouraged you to get here on this workshop, and what would you like to know more about as a neurosensitive leader?
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you allowing me to speak here. But again, as you mentioned, my name is Elena Green. I'm a coach, mentor in the spiritual space. And when I came across somebody, a friend of mine had sent me an interview, and what you were sharing in your interview was super, it spoke to me. There was things, and specifically today, so that's why I got on today, was to see kind of what you're, get a little more about what you're sharing, because a lot of these things, although I'm not diagnosed, I feel almost every one of those points that you're sharing. So I'm like, okay, so maybe it is that's the case. But even the executive dysfunction, like understanding what that means. And I appreciate the thought of just allowing myself to understand some of this and how it works, and how I can, my biggest motivator was to be able to connect, to be able to understand how to utilize the tools so that I can run my business better. Because I feel, like I said, all of these things that you had mentioned about clients that you connected with were showing up as definitely things that have shown up in my own business. So finding tools and techniques to be able to understand it all, and how I can better regulate, better support myself in the process. And then I can utilize, like you said, utilize the tips and things so that I can function better in my business and make my business better because of it. So questions. I don't have a whole lot. You covered a lot of really good information, and I'm going to stick to one of the really surprising things was you said about the gut health. So I'm paying attention to the next workshop around food, because I never really paid attention. I've done health and wellness and fitness coaching before as well. And that was something that's never come up. And I've done training in nutrition. I was a personal trainer for years. That never came up. So that really sparked interest in me, and I'm going to be paying attention to the next, when you go to do that workshop for sure, about gut health and stuff like that, and how that could be helpful. As questions for this session though, I really appreciate, again, some of these tools and techniques, and the idea of paying attention to the freeze, because I've definitely felt that, how to move out of it. And I've done, because my work is spiritual anyway, I've done meditation, I've gone for walks whenever I feel like I'm really stuck in that space. But I've never really paid attention to the automatic change coming out of the freeze. So if there's any other, and I guess I don't know if I even really have a question, but that's kind of where I'm pondering is like, I haven't really paid attention to the difference of doing those modalities or using those tools in application for this. I just did it as part of practice, not specific application for this, I guess.
Okay. So if I'm understanding you right, you would like to know how to use the tools that you already have, kind of to focus and then to get yourself out of the freeze and to actually witness. Okay, I've used this tool now, and now I'm out of the freeze. If I'm understanding you right.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if it's really a question, other than I wasn't even aware that those tools would be useful for that, because I've definitely had days where I'm like, I guess I'm just not functioning today. Like, I'm just writing this day off, and it's okay, because I had that compassion for myself, going, okay, it's just one of those days, I just can't, and I'm okay with that. But realizing that there's tools that can help me is super empowering, because of those are all like tools that I've used before, right? So
I think there's a big difference between today is just not my day and I need to take a day off. And I think that this is where we struggle a lot, right? Because especially if we are not forced to, financially or otherwise, we're going to actually indulge in this day off far more than we should. Or sometimes we're going to go to another extreme, whereas we're not going to give ourselves time off even when we really need it. So this ideal balance is really what's needed. But what I always say is, are you in your business where you want to be financially, where you want to be emotionally, where you want to be mentally? And if not, there's a place for improvement, right? And what are going to be, is this day off going to have any repercussions, right? In long term, and how often do you take it? And to me, quite honestly, what I've noticed the most is that with people with sensitive entrepreneurs, they do tend to give themselves more, kind of cut themselves more slack, but not in a productive kind of way. They just don't do anything. It's like, I'm not going to take this to go and to relax my nervous system and to feel powerful again. And when I feel powerful again, what's going to happen inevitably, I'm going to be boosted up, and I'm going to want to be more productive. I'm going to want to do things. Most of the time it's like, I just don't feel like it. Oh, let me walk, let me take a bath, let me sleep, and this is fine. This is fine. Everything has its time and place. But is it making you more productive? Because this sensitive entrepreneurship is all about productivity. Relax so you can go further, right? Relax to thrive, not relax for the purposes of relaxing solely, although that is quite welcomed, right? But this is not the point. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, and like you said, it just understanding, because again, I didn't know. I kind of just wrote my day off, and it was like, okay, I guess that's all I can do. But being aware of the fact that I can go use these things to re-empower myself in the process, right? And bring that power back, or bring that productivity back. That's super powerful.
Going back to your body, that is my first and kind of only advice at this point. Going back to the physical sensations, going back into the physical stuff, because the problem, and this is what most people don't understand, is within the physical self. Trauma is stored in the body. Neurodiversity is happening in the brain. It's all body related. And we can do affirmations and meditations and all those beautiful tools that we can use and that I use and love on a daily basis. But the problem is primarily physical body related. So in order to fix the problem, we need to go back to the physical body to make sure that physical body is strengthened through, once again, proper nutrition, proper sleep schedule, proper supplementation, because in this case, if our biochemistry doesn't work for us, it's going to work against us. There is no middle ground. If it's us, it's most of the time going to work against us. Once again, if the serotonin hasn't been produced, dopamine won't be converted either, which means no motivation. So which means I'm going to sign the day off, right? So this is why it's so paramount and what most people don't understand. Tip number 2. Try to, and this is, this is so ironical that I'm saying this, but try to limit the technology usage and only use technology for the business purposes. Most of us use technology for entertainment purposes, but what that happens is it keeps this dopamine loop on repeat, and we never really detoxify. If we can limit our computer usage at the very least to only our business, especially if we're running an online practice, that's going to boost our productivity long term to the maximum, right? Because each time that we're off offline with technology free, we're recharging, we're going back into the body. All of these waves, they also impact us, they impact our energy field, they impact our brain and our frequencies of our brain, right? And with neurodiverse brains, the way that our brain is wired is not really technology friendly. This is why, going back to the nature. So I know it sounds very cliche. It sounds really like, oh, it's been said already. But I do not think that the science has been quoted as rightfully as it should be on these topics. And what I'm seeing, to be quite honest, with most of the practitioners, they should actually be doing their stuff on site and in person. And they should be removing the technology part altogether before they've established themselves in person, so much so that they can perhaps even pay other people to do technology stuff for them. Mm-hmm. And this is the truth that not many people want to hear, because everybody wants to be an online successful entrepreneur, which is fantastic. But once again, if you're down that route, the lifestyle needs to be adjusted to that. Because let's just make one thing clear, right? We're all been running online businesses. You know that if you want to run an online business, you have to be online for at least 6 to 8 hours every single day. There is no escaping that. There is no chasing or not chasing that. It's the God's honest truth, as they would say. Now, imagine what this does to your nervous system if you don't recharge in the next 16 hours. So this is the biggest cutoff that no one's talking about. If you want to run an online business, everything else needs to be in nature, not in the concrete jungle, in the nature. Because otherwise, your nervous system is going to go between freeze, fight, and flight as a sensitive person. Neurotypicals can do it, especially men. So it's not really justified to compare ourselves with, an online coach who is a male in his early 30s. And if he is neurotypical, his entire setup is completely different. What he can do is literally biologically impossible to us, unless we have a specific tactics, techniques, and everything in between. So I know this is a very long answer to your kind of question, so I'm gonna try to wrap it up here.
No, this is really good. Thank you. The other question, I do have a question. It just kind of hit me again. I knew I had it, but it was gone, and now it's back. You mentioned at the end there about creating the habits, and the consistency is a word that kind of irks me a little bit, because as somebody that's in this space, it's like I try to build consistency but it's like every day needs to be different, and I can't have a routine and all of these things, right? So creating habits, new habits, are difficult, obviously, right? So what are your thoughts around that and trying to create the new habit of regulating, of all of these things?
It needs to be a strong why behind it. And you need to know, and you need to fully understand what is creating this habit going to bring into your life. If I just now tell you, regulate for the purposes of regulating, you're going to apply it once, twice, maybe 3 times, that's it. But start with why, as Simon Sinek says, right? So why do you want to create this habit? Why do you want to master emotional regulation? And in my own life, when I've mastered emotional regulation, my business grew, my contacts expanded, I got amazing opportunities to be present at stages that I only dreamt of prior to that. So this is really the crucial thing. You want to understand, why do I want this? And I think this is kind of what omits most of the entrepreneurs. They think that these mindset hacks and working on themselves is just kind of something we do aside. But if you're neurosensitive and neurospicy, this is paramount. If you don't do this, there is no other thing that you can do. You can eventually, you're going to get burned out and you're never going to recuperate, or you're going to recuperate 10 years in. But this is, so why? So the first thing, if you want to change your habit or implement a new habit, be very clear on why. And be very clear how implementation of that habit is going to reflect onto your life and business. So for example, you want to let me kind of try this with you a little bit. You want to implement a new habit of emotional regulation. You want to know how to emotionally regulate to proceed with your day and to be as productive as you can be. Why?
Well, so like you said, so I can be productive and my business can succeed as opposed to struggle like it has.
Okay. So then would it be wise to really envisage how will my business look like once I've mastered it? When I fully have mastered emotional regulation, I want to know exactly what kind of improvements can I expect to see. monetarily, context-wise, clients-wise. So I want to, okay, this productivity is a big thing for me. Procrastination is a big thing for me. Executive dysfunction is a big thing for me. Now I'm going to go beyond that and envisage how is my life going to look like once I've got that out of the way. I want to be as precise with how, because by knowing this, by clearly in my head seeing this, by being able to even taste it, touch this, feel this, I'm going to be more prone in actually starting to implementing this new habit. So you want to be very strong on your why, right? Why. And to be quite honest, I always say running our own business is not for the faint of heart. And we need to understand what I really see a lot of people are in love with an idea of having a business, but they're not really completely sold on the value that they offer to the world. So, and I always say, if you haven't sold your business to yourself, you're not going to be able to sell it to anyone else.
Mm. I do have one more quick thing, just as a follow-up to one of the things you said, and maybe it was, you said retract, replenish, and consolidate. What do you mean?
So let's say you have had an amazingly productive day, and then you start the next day, and it's not going as productively as you'd hoped for. Stop. Retract, consolidate, give yourself 2 hours, and continue. Don't try to push it, but don't dismiss it altogether. Okay, now I need 2 hours, and I recognize my body needs 2 hours, my mind needs 2 hours, an hour, whatever it is. Okay, retract, consolidate, go back on to track, right? Don't run away, don't freeze, be okay with you going through the motions, right? Okay, now I'm feeling this, I'm experiencing this, okay, and I'm gonna ground myself, get myself back in my body, be more present, relax myself, make myself feel safe, and then I'm going to proceed. And usually the thing that we can proceed with is the thing that we love. So what is something that fills me up in my business, right? Is it writing something? Is it filming something? Is it calling someone? Is it whatever it is? Like, what is my energy boosting activity? Especially when we feel down, like the worst thing that we can do, like for example, you have had an amazing productive day, the next day you're not feeling good for anything, and then you push yourself to do something you really hate. That's not going to go anywhere. What is the thing you love? What inspires you? What makes you take and fly? Do that. Take 1 hour for yourself, 2 hours for yourself, and then do just that.
I love that. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here, and thank you for participating and for all of your questions. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to be sending this to all of you on replay. And up until the next time, stay extraordinary.